Alright, so Gundam Evolution have released some information on a patch that's going to be coming out later this month, and so in this video I'm going to be going over what this patch is. I'm going to talk about the different changes they've made in this patch, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on them and whether or not I think they're good or bad, or how I think these changes are going to affect the meta. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. Alright, so the first patch is for Gundam, and it states that Gundam's win and usage rates were lower than those of other ranged units. We will adjust its stats to make it better in shootouts. So the first change they've made is to its beam rifle, and they've increased its damage by 10. Keeping in mind also that headshots work as a multiplier in this game and not flat damage, so that'll be increased by more than 10. They've also increased the Hyper Hammer area damage from 100 to 150. I think this is a nice little buff for Gundam. I think he could have used it, but I don't think this is going to do anything too drastic. If I understand area damage correctly, it's not that the area you have to hit to get them stunned is larger and more forgiving now. I think it just means that the damage it'll do to people who are in like that sort of cone of area where you're not stunning them but you're hitting them is going to be a bit larger. I don't think that's too big of a buff. Honestly, I don't think that really matters all that much. And I don't think the 10 extra damage is going to matter all too much with the Gundam Beam Rifle too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it'll make him kill anyone any faster if he's landing all headshots. So I think this is more of a just... You know, it's perfect, of course, you're not landing headshots all the time, so I guess this damage will help you a little bit. But like I said, I don't think this is a massive change for Gundam. I don't think it's going to too drastically change where he sits in the meta, but hey, it's nice that they gave out this. Alright, so here's a big one, Gundam Barbitos. So it reads, this unit has had greater success than most other units in ranked matches. We believe that the reason for this is because there aren't many units that can combo it at a close range, and its ability to down a full health Sosby with one combo. We will alter the damage numbers to balance things out. So they've decreased its HP by 100, they've taken 50 damage off of the right click or the mace smash, and they have taken 50 damage off of the sword slam ability. This is actually a huge nerf to Barbitos. So what's going to happen now is when you land your full combo on a Sosby and you do a left click, you're not actually going to kill the Sosby. He's going to have a chance to either use his dash to get away, get help from teammates, etc. Also, 100 less health is pretty big. There's a lot of times Barbitos gets away or makes a jump and is able to land safely on an enemy and do his combo, where he's only living with a slight sliver of health. This 100 health might really make a big difference for Barb. Yeah, this is actually a really big change to the game. I think this is going to really hurt Barb. So yeah. Is this necessary though? Honestly, it's probably a good thing. I think Barb being really powerful is kind of not the greatest for the game in general. I think one issue is that newer players or lower skill players really don't have a great time playing against Barb because they find it to be not very fun and engaging when they just get comboed and killed instantly. Even for us who are like a bit better at the game, still Barb can be pretty frustrating to play against, especially on higher ping where you'll feel like you'll dodge a Barb slam and it won't really matter, you'll die anyway. So this isn't too bad of a change. We're going to see how it plays out, I guess, but I think this is going to really hurt Barb. Maybe it'll also give room for other melees to sort of come more into the meta. All right, next up is Methus. I'm going to read it out here. It says, the changes made during Season 3 Ignition, combined with the adjustments in Unicorn Gundam Psycho Frame Resonance, resulted in a downward trend in both usage and win rates. Since the rate at which this unit can repair is where we want it to be, we will strengthen its offensive capabilities by increasing the number of rounds of the arm beam gun and the damage of the twin shot. So they've increased the mag size by 2 for the arm beam gun, and they've increased the damage by 50 on its twin shot. So I used to play Methus as my main character, and I stopped playing Methus as my main character when the Season 3 patch happened. I thought they killed the character. I really don't think this is doing enough to save the character. Unfortunately, no matter how you buff this character, if you buff his guns, like his damage or his like rate of fire, you're going to make him overpowered. If you do a buff like this, where you buff his magazine size, it's really not going to matter, because a big issue with Methus is that you need to stay alive to heal your teammates. So when you peek and take fights, once you get poked down, you need to stop engaging. You're not someone who can just fight till they die. You need to stop engaging so you can stay alive, heal your teammates. So having more magazine size really doesn't matter all that much, because in a lot of these fights, what happens is you're going to be shot down and poked out and you're going to have to fall back before you use your full mag anyway. So I don't think that buff really matters at all. The twin shot is it's a good buff. I like that. It's a good change, I think. Make his twin shot a bit more frightening for enemies, and it's going to help you build your ult a little bit faster. But yeah, I don't think this is enough to really save Methus, and I don't think it's enough to save Methus. This isn't enough, but it's a step in the right direction, I suppose. Alright, next up is Dom Trooper, and it reads, "We have found out that the suction sensor mines have very little impact. We will enhance their damage and reduce the cooldown." So the suction sensor mines have gone from 130 max damage to 200, and their minimum damage has increased from 50 to 100, and their cooldown has been decreased to 4 seconds. This is an insane buff. I don't know what they're thinking. Dom Trooper is already very powerful, and while his mines, I agree, weren't the most useful, they're mainly used as a reload cancel. So you shoot, then you reload, and then when you hit 75% on the reload charge, you toss out a mine, and now you're good to go again. Yeah, this is just a really baffling change. I don't know why this is necessary at all. Yeah, his mines weren't too strong, but I don't think they needed to be strong. Dom was still a very powerful character. Yeah, this is an insane patch. Not patch, but this is an insane buff to me. I don't know why they would do this. Alright, so here's the changes that they've made to Guntank, and so they stated that Guntank's BOP missile will be buffed to enhance its effectiveness against fast-moving units, and so they say the fire rate in multi-lock mode has been increased from 0.14 to 0.12, and then the damage has been increased from 21 to 23. So this is actually a pretty nice buff for Guntank. I like this. So I did the math real quick, and essentially he's going to be firing 1 more shot per second per target, and then those shots in multi-lock mode do 21 damage. So if you're shooting at 1 person, you're going to be doing an extra 21 damage. If you're shooting at 3 people, well, now you're doing an extra 30... No, Jesus. You're doing an extra 63 damage. So that's actually a pretty decent buff, and I'm sure that's gonna, if the longer you're shooting at multi-targets, it's gonna really add up. That's a pretty nice buff for Guntank. It's gonna make him a bit scarier in these sort of big team fights where he's able to multi-lock and hit a lot of people. That being said, they've also buffed this concentrated fire damage, which means he'll be a bit more capable of taking those like single target fights at longer range, where he's not really the best in the 1v1, whereas he really excels in the 1v1 when he's able to get in close on targets. I don't think the concentrated fire is too much of a buff, but the extra fire rate in multi-lock is actually a pretty big buff for Guntank. I like that. Alright, next up is Mairu, and they state that since Mairu's last rework, its win rate has been lower than expected. Its damage has been lower than that of other ranged units, so we will increase the damage of its Rendu grenade. So they're increasing the Rendu grenade damage from 220 maximum to 240 maximum, and they're increasing the minimum from 80 to 90. So these numbers aren't too substantial. They don't read as too much, which is good. I think buffing Mairu is pretty scary. I kind of stated it in my last video, but to summarize, I think if you make Mairu too powerful, he's going to be so oppressive on maps where he is already pretty decent that those maps are going to be incredibly unfun and very frustrating to play. This being said, I don't think this buff is enough to sort of do that and have my fears become a reality. But I'm scared if they continue down the path of buffing Mairu too much. So on a map like Missile Base, for example, Mairu, who is already pretty decent, is going to be even better. Does this make him a must pick on that map? I don't think so. And does this mean he's going to be viable on every other map in the game? No, I don't really think so personally. I think this is a pretty small buff overall, but it looks like it's okay. I'm going to be cautious, but I will say that this is an okay buff for now, I think. Alright, next up is Zaku 2 melee, and so they state that the cooldown of the large Heat Hawk slash has been shortened to increase Zaku 2 melee's standoff capability at medium range or longer. Additionally, the damage reduction of the sub-action guard tackle has been increased to make it easier for the unit to close the distance with enemies. So they've upped the damage reduction on his guard tackle from 30 to 50%, and they have lowered the cooldown on his large Heat Hawk from 8 seconds to 6 seconds. So this is good. Zaku 2 melee definitely needed a buff. I don't know if this is enough, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. Maybe with Barb kind of being hurt really bad by nerfs, this will actually be enough to bring Zaku 2 melee into the meta a little bit. So my understanding is that the guard tackle buff only applies when he's actually doing the charge, not just when he's holding out his little arms. So I don't think that buff is too big, but it's something. It's good. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think the cooldown reduction on the large Heat Hawk is actually pretty decent. This is going to let Zaku 2 melee do a lot more poke, which means he's going to be building his ultimate faster, he's going to be building his rage faster, and he'll just be providing a bit more damage, whereas a lot of times he sort of lacks impact. So yeah, I think this is a pretty good buff for Zaku 2 melee. I'm going to like to see how this sort of plays out. Alright, next up is Hyperion Gundam. This is pretty exciting. So they state that Hyperion Gundam has been struggling in close-range combat and has had a lower win rate than other shielded units, so it will be buffed. Also, since it was having a hard time finishing enemies off, Armure Lumiere Lancer, hopefully I said that right, will now require fewer points to activate. So they've increased Hyperion's HP from 900 to 1000. They've lowered the cooldown on his big shield from 14 seconds to 12 seconds, and they've reduced the number of points to activate his ultimate from 8900 to 8000. This is a pretty exciting buff for Hyperion Gundam. I honestly didn't think Hyperion Gundam was too weak even right now. I think the 100 health buff is decent. I'll take it. I think the cooldown reduction on his shield is pretty great, actually. There's a lot of times where you've used your shield and then the fight's happening, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's been so long since I used my shield. How is it not off cooldown yet? So hopefully this will help with that. And then being able to build your ultimate faster is just a good thing. His ult isn't actually like too strong, so I think having it come up a bit faster is a nice way to sort of compensate for that. So yeah, this is a pretty exciting change to Hyperion Gundam. I'm going to love to get in game and see how it feels, but overall, I like it. All right, and the last balance change they've made is to Gundam Dynames. And so they state that Gundam Dynames' win rate has been low, so its bullet size will be increased and its maximum charge time decreased while Chi maneuver is active. So they've increased its projectile size from 1 to 3, and they've lowered the maximum charge time from 1.2 seconds to 1 seconds. This, of course, only occurring while you're in your Trans Am. With this buff, I thought Dynames was pretty alright actually, but it seems that his win rate has been low. So maybe this will be a good buff to sort of get that win rate up. Gonna make his ultimate a little bit more frightening. I do actually really like the charge time being decreased just slightly. I think that's a good change. There's a lot of times you'll charge it and you'll thought you've charged it fully and take a shot and it'll only be at like 80 and you'll be like, really? Like not fully charged yet? So I think a lot of those moments are gonna go away thanks to this change. And the projectile size being increased from 1 to 3, I really don't know what that's going to do. I guess it's going to be a bit more forgiving. If you're slightly off target, you'll still hit now. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to see how that plays out in game. But overall, it seems to be that his win rate was low, so maybe this was a good change actually. All right, and so they made one map adjustment, and that's the Lunar Comm Station, and they've just made the passageway in between A and B a bit wider. I don't really know this, honestly. I don't really care. It's not a change I have too many like thoughts or concerns about. I just think that there's already like a lot of ways to get to B from A anyway, because you can also go around the sides. So I don't really see how this is going to be too impactful, honestly, but I don't know, maybe I'm missing something and it's just not clicking right now, but I don't think this is going to be a crazy big change. All right, and lastly, they made matchmaking and rating adjustments. So they say the weight of the rate fluctuation based on individual performance will be increased. For high-performing players, their rate increase will be higher after wins, and their rate decrease will be lower after losses. So essentially, they're going to weigh your individual performance more into how your rating is affected after matches. So if you play well and you win, you're going to win more elo-wise, and if you play well and you lose, you're going to lose less elo-wise. I think this is a pretty good change. I'm excited to see how it's implemented. I think that's going to be really important. But we have an issue right now, at least in North America, where when we queue ranked, which we have to do in Japan servers, Japan players are attempting to organize to throw all of our games. So I think this is going to be good. So that way, if Japan players are throwing our games, we'll be seen as the highest performing player on those teams, and we'll lose less when they do throw our games. And the Japan players who are throwing our games will be punished more, and they will lose rating faster. So I think that's a good change for us individually. I'm happy about that. But yeah, we're going to see how it's implemented and see how that goes. But overall, that's the entire patch. And me personally, I'm really excited for some of the changes they've made. In particular, I'm excited to see how Hyperion Gundam plays out. I'm excited to see how Zaku Melee plays out. I'm excited to see how Guntank plays out. And I'm also pretty excited to see, there we are, how Barbitos is impacted by these changes. Is Barbitos dead? Is Guntank going to be competitively viable, or at least even better in ranked? Will Zaku Melee sort of take Barbitos' slot? I think these are all questions we're going to figure out the answer to when this patch finally drops. And so I think that's pretty exciting. So yeah, that's the patch. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.